So here I have a drawing application within which I can create different shapes. Like I can make some squares, I can make circles. Some of these shapes are created with a single drag. So for example, to make an equilateral triangle, I press down, drag, release, and that gives me my equilateral triangle. The same is true of the square. It's just press, drag, release. Same thing with the circle, press, drag, release. Other shapes, though, require 2 clicks. So to create a rectangle, I press, drag, release, and now I move the mouse with no buttons and perform a second click to complete it. Or with the general triangle, I press, drag, release, and then I move the mouse with no buttons to position the third point of the triangle, the third corner. A second click completes that. So there's also an option here to move things. And I can get to all these options through a second mechanism. It's a type of menu called a radial menu. And here it is. So I get to this with a combination of the control key on the keyboard and the left mouse button. As long as I hold down that combination, the menu stays up. And then I simply drag in the direction of the option I want. For example, circle. I drag south. And now maybe you notice the radio button for circle was also selected. And now I can create circles. Dragging to the west gets me equilateral triangle. So this is a sort of a quick way to get to the same options. And an important thing to notice about this radial menu is that when I drag within it, I don't need to release over the text label of the option I want. I can drag beyond it. I can drag a little bit outside it. What determines my selection here is the direction of my drag with respect to the center of the menu. So imagine that each of these items has an imaginary pie slice associated with it. We could have up to 8 items in this radial menu, in which case each item would have a 45-degree pie slice. In this particular example, we don't have any items for the northwest or the northeast, so the northern item here has been given a larger pie slice of 90 degrees, and the text label has also been moved closer to the center just to make it more compact. But in the south and the southwest and the southeast, each of these has a pie slice of 45 degrees. Okay, so that's a really important thing to keep in mind if you're going to implement one of these menus. You really want to allow the user to drag beyond the item and for the selection to still work, because that's what's going to allow your user to go fast. In this particular implementation, I also have a default item, and you can see that when my cursor is in the center of the menu, the northern item is already highlighted, and that's to tell the user that they don't actually have to drag north, they can just release within the center. Okay, so for example, if they've selected triangle and they want to go back to the select and move mode, they could just do control left mouse button, press release, and they already got into that item. They don't have to drag north to get to it. So there's a few advantages in using this type of radial menu. The first one is I can get to all my options without moving my cursor to the periphery of the user interface. So it reduces back and forth motion. That's the first advantage. A second one is the menu's only popped up when I want it to be there. So this saves screen space, and I could actually get rid of the panel on the left of radio buttons. We don't really need it anymore. A third advantage is you could think of the drag motions in here as gestures. This is sort of like a gestural interface. And yet, unlike many other gestural interfaces, I don't have to first learn all the gestures by heart to use them. Instead, if I don't know what the gesture is for equilateral triangle, I can simply open up the menu and look, and then I see, oh, it's over here. And in the process of moving my cursor onto that item, I'm performing the same motion that an expert user would perform if they knew the gesture by heart. So by doing that movement over and over again as a novice, I can't help but naturally transition to expert behavior and do the gesture very fast. Okay, so this type of interface creates a smooth transition from novice to expert behavior. A fourth advantage is I can perform these gestures without even looking once I know them by heart. My eyes can be focused somewhere else. And a fifth advantage is to keep this menu open, I have to hold my finger down on the mouse button. And this creates something that's called kinesthetic tension or kinesthetic feedback. It's the pressure that you feel in your finger. And this has been shown experimentally to be a very strong and effective source of feedback to remind the user of what they're doing and what's going on in the interface. So this kinesthetic tension is sometimes called a quasi mode. It's sometimes called a spring-loaded mode. It's a very nice feature, and it's one that we often see in these sorts of pop-up widgets. So that is the radial menu.